Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by Arwin, trying to get in the middle of the intro, as is fairly typical. We're also joined by 10th Man, Neil, Brian, and a whole bunch of people in Gilded, so welcome, one and all.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good.
Woo!
Excellent stuff. Computers were actually functioning perfectly for a change, which is a surprise, to say the least, but good stuff. Let's do a bit of housekeeping, as I tried to do yesterday, as we haven't got through a full housekeeping session in probably a month. I don't think we completed it yesterday. We were about two questions shy, so I'll try and keep it in a fairly regular order so we can rattle through it. No answering the questions before they're asked. Let's see if we can keep this relatively concise. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge, that's a horizon formerly known as Earth curvature?
Oh. Well, can I just say something on that, Nathan?
Absolutely, that's what it's for. Go ahead.
I think we spoke yesterday about some of the evidence points you'd get if you was a normal, I'll say normal person, somebody who's just looking at evidence of Earth curve, and you get some. I'll read 7 of the answers out for you, which you'd get on the internet if you was looking into the proof of Earth curve. And it says 7 ways to prove Earth is round. I won't go into. I'll just give you the points. Watch a ship sail off to sea. Point number 2. Watch a lunar eclipse. Number 3. Point number 4. Travel through or even within different time zones. 5. Watch a sunset. 6. Measure shadows across the country. The best one. Point number 7. Google International Space Station photos. Now this is at the top of your search menu. This is the top 7 ways to prove that the Earth is round. So I just thought I'd share that with everybody.
No, that's okay. Let's cover them. I mean, I was listening to them, and up until the one that you said last, which was photos from the International Space Station. Yeah, and this is top 7 ways of proving you're on a sphere, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, photos from anywhere of a sphere Earth would convince me. So let's deal with that first, because the others, not one of them was self-explanatory to say this proves you're on a sphere. Eclipses, going and look at shadows, watching boats. None of these are self-explanatory. None of these say because when you watch a boat, X, Y, and Z will happen, and therefore A, B, and C is the cause. That's not being asserted. Watch a boat. Now, maybe it goes into detail about each and every one of them, and that's just the introduction. But nonetheless, based on the introduction, only one of them would suggest that we live on a sphere, and that's photos of a sphere. Right? So let's start there. Does anybody want to add anything before we do cover ISS photos?
Yes. What was number 3? Because
we'll get to that.
He clipped out.
Eclipse.
No, lunar eclipse was 2. What was 3?
On deck.
Number,
what was number
3? Oh yeah, sorry. Number 3 was the climb a tree.
Oh, okay.
Again, I'm sure there's context given in the article, but I'm just going on face value. Hello, Adam.
Afternoon, guys.
Just based on face value, None of them are self-explanatory. Climb a tree. I can prove zombies exist. How? Climb a tree. Doesn't explain why that proves zombies exist or why Earth's a sphere. So we'll maybe get into them at a later stage. But a photo of Earth as a sphere. Okay. Where's the ISS exactly?
Supposedly in the vacuum of space outside of Earth.
Can't have gas pressure out of container. That's impossible. It's fair.
And that's somewhere that is real. Any evidence you can have gas pressure, like we're all breathing, without a container?
Well, the picture's from the ISS.
We're just establishing what the ISS is and where the ISS is. It's claimed to be a spaceship. Okay? Space, right? Outer space, that's where it's supposed to be. Okay? What's that? A vacuum. Okay? Is there any evidence you can have gas pressure, like we all breathe, without a container to facilitate men going out to outer space beyond a barrierless gas pressure that violates the second law of thermodynamics? Are the pictures real? Have they come from a real place? If it's from a sky vacuum, then definitely not, because there isn't a sky vacuum. If that's where they're claiming they've come from, then they're not real pictures.
Nathan, I think I have. You might amend that housekeeping question a little, asking not just gas pressure, but gas pressure or the lack thereof. Right?
Okay,
Because you also need a
I
vacuum.
understand what you're asking. Is there any evidence you can have a vacuum without a container, is what you're saying? I'll ask that also. Any evidence you can have the sky vacuum or any vacuum without a container?
Not a
Listen,
chance.
I seen it on TV last night. You're going to tell me the telly's lying? They were speaking to 4 people on that thing. A football player, a well-known football player.
Hold on.
Marshawn Lynch.
Slow
was
down, slow
communicating
down.
with them. You're going to tell me it's a lie?
Slow down. You're not giving context. You saw... What I've heard is ramblings about a football player being there. Where's there?
He was speaking to them while they were in the space shuttle floating around. I seen it with my own eyes on the telly.
You saw them on the space shuttle floating around on telly?
That's correct.
Okay, give us a bit more context. What did you actually see? I don't watch telly.
He was talking to the astronauts while they were doing their job on the ISS.
So we're talking about an internal shot.
So it showed there was no gravity there.
Don't tell me what was, just tell me what you saw. You saw an internal shot of men floating around, correct?
Yes, and they were talking to Marshawn Lynch, who was grounded on Earth.
Yeah, let's not worry about who they're talking to. I'm just concerned with what you saw. You saw an interior studio shot of men talking to each other.
Yeah, if that's what you want to call it.
That's a fact. Even if they claimed to be somewhere that they can't possibly be, that would be the second law of thermodynamics violation detailed earlier, that is known as the sky vacuum or outer space. They aren't there. That goes without saying. So what are you left with? Well, they claim to be in outer space on a little light that is claimed to be this interior shot of men floating around. Well, they're not in space, but they are on your telly floating around. Okay? Proving that space is real? Definitely not. There's still a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum that they'd have to be in for them to be on the light that they say they're on. They're definitely in a studio. And even if that light really was in a sky vacuum and that was demonstrably true, that light in the sky would be a flying studio. It isn't. It's a flying light with a very unusual shape.
Oh, dear.
But it's not a studio. That light is not the studio with men inside it. That's a studio with men inside it, shockingly.
But maybe gas particles behave a certain way here on Earth, but when you get up higher into space, maybe they're able to just...
Look, there is no space. No. Right, let's try this one more time, Neil. Space is where they're claiming their studio is. So what you're describing is what happens in the studio called the ISS. Okay. Now, we can argue all day about what happens in the studio. What matters is, where is that studio? Is the light in the sky we see going past that studio? Well, let's find out. What do they say the studio with the men in is? They say it's a spaceship. Okay, what space? A vacuum. Oh, well, it's definitely not that, is it? So they say the studio's in a vacuum, and they say the light is that studio. But that light is just a light, and there are no studios in sky vacuums. So what they say the light is, it isn't. Because they're claiming their studio is in a vacuum, and it can't possibly be. We all clear? That was number 1 off your list of 7.
I'm all clear, but I don't think you're clear. Until we, as individuals, can get up there and demonstrate that there could or could not be gas pressure uncontained, then I think they have the upper hand. They're there. We're not.
No, third time's a charm. They are where? In a studio filming conversations between footballers. That's where they actually are, factually speaking. Where do they claim the studio is? In Narnia. Narnia isn't real. The sky vacuum isn't real. It doesn't matter if the footballers' conversation takes place in Narnia or space. If that's where they're claiming they are, neither location is real. You can claim a location shot is somewhere it isn't. Often, movies get filmed in cities that they're not actually claimed to be located in. Yeah, RoboCop. It's Dallas, right? The municipal building, or whatever it's called, that cop building, is in Dallas. Where's RoboCop set? Detroit. It's not in Detroit, right?
You're talking about a movie, Nathan.
The set was in Dallas. Well, the set is wherever NASA have decided to put the ISS set. On Earth, with lights and cameras and power and an editing suite next to it. That's where the studio is, somewhere on Earth. They say...
You're talking about a movie.
What?
RoboCop the movie.
Can I try to help Neil here?
So, sorry, what distinguishes RoboCop as a movie from the ISS on telly? How is it any different?
Movies are with actors that act and they play a role. These people are American and Russian heroes, right? There's a Russian guy up there as well. I don't know if he's still there.
Back to this again.
But these
Up
are
there.
people doing something for the world.
It's 4th time's a charm. You keep reverting back to they're heroes because they're up there. What, somewhere that isn't real? They're heroes because they've saved Aslan in Narnia. No. Narnia isn't real. Yeah, but they saved Aslan. They're American. They're heroes. They saved Aslan. Narnia's not real. Doesn't matter what they say they're doing or where they say they're doing it if the place isn't real. They can continue to say, but we're in space. We beat the Russians to Narnia. Wow. And you didn't, because it isn't real. They didn't beat anybody to anywhere. They've claimed that they know what heaven is. And they're selling you their heaven from a studio claiming to be a light in heaven. That's what they're doing. They're literally claiming they're in heaven. It's insane.
It does sound like the Neil.
Where do you go when you go in a plane, Nathan? You go in the sky, right?
This is what the shows should be about. This level of passion. I know you guys are enthusiastic, but it does have to have this level of passion from me for people to want to share this show. And for the last 2 months, it just hasn't had it. Well, thank the Lord the computer's working and I can finally be passionate about how stupid NASA is.
Nathan, you're calling it stupid, but I guarantee over 90% of the world believe that these people are up there. In the
Fifth
ISS.
time. 5th time. Up where now?
Oh,
5th time.
I know what you're saying.
Can I try with Neil something? Neil.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, just 2 questions. To have a vacuum, what must you do?
It has to have containment. I understand this.
Okay. To have gas pressure, what must you do?
You have to have containment. I understand this. Here on Earth, it demonstrates that. But I'm
Hang
just saying,
on,
what if
hang on,
it's
hang
not
on.
listening to
Just
me?
go with him,
Hang
Neil. Just
on,
relax.
hang
Just go with
on.
him.
Tranquilo, tranquilo. All right, so you've established to create a vacuum, you have to have an enclosure and take all the gas out of it so there's no gas pressure. So you have a vacuum. And in order to have gas pressure, you got to have a container and put air in it and create gas pressure. Would you agree with that summary of what you said?
Of course.
Okay. So what Nathan is trying to say is that when they're doing Hollywood type of stuff, it isn't just for actors. NASA's doing that kind of stuff because what they're trying to get you to believe is that someone got onto a spaceship in the gas pressure Earth, went out somehow, got out of the container that allows for gas pressure, then somehow got into a container where there is no gas pressure, and that transfer of getting from one container to the other is ridiculous.
Exactly.
Right.
I'm just saying things could be different in space. You're just saying, where's
Oh,
that place?
fifth,
No, I
fifth
know
time,
all
5
that.
times wasn't enough. In space, in Narnia. Yeah. Let's do a quick shout out to somebody I haven't plugged for a while. Dilly Gill, DILLY, space, GILL. YouTuber. Go and subscribe today. What Dilly Gill does is takes apart the studio and what the studio is doing and the techniques and cinematography of the studio known as NASA. Quote from Dilly Gill. NASA are on the cutting edge of cinematography. They're not on the cutting edge of space travel. They're on the cutting edge of making telly.
So you're telling me those guys up there know that they're not up there and they're all acting and deceiving the world?
Yes.
That's what you're telling me right
Yes, without a doubt. The people who claim to be in space, are liars. Shameless, overt, outrageous, over the top liars. Yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you. All astronauts that claim to have been outside of Earth's, quote, atmosphere, sphere-shaped air, oxymoron with no barrier, any who claim to have been beyond that are liars. There is no outer space. There is no atmosphere, sphere-shaped air without containment. To claim that you've been beyond to a second law of thermodynamics violation is a lie. And you will and would know that you were lying when you told people that you'd been to a place you hadn't been. Likewise, anybody who claims to have gone to the outer limits, the next dimension, the afterlife, heaven, you name it. They're all liars too. Nobody's been. They're liars. Yes.
Have you tested gas pressure beyond Earth? Have you personally tested how gas behaves other than here on Earth?
There is no other than here on Earth. You give me an exception where I can test it beyond here on Earth. Oh, should I go to Aslan's territory or outer space that isn't real? Which one do I do to test it other than being here? How can I do that? Besides, we're talking about laws of nature. So your appeal to something that isn't even in our realm is inconsequential. We live here. We have natural law. Natural law governs the world we live in. Now, if you're going to say, well, up in the sky, it's a different world. What, like heaven? Yeah, they've renamed it space and decided what it's going to be. And they've said that they're the ones flying around in it. They're not. They're just liars. They're trying to be your god.
It's like what they remember when we was little and we used to watch like Star Trek and Star Wars, and you watch the films and it's all fantasy and it's exciting and spaceships flying around. That's what NASA have done. They've tried to bring that down to reality, and now we've got grown men walking around thinking that's actually really happening. Them films that you used to watch as a child is now real and happening somewhere in La La Land.
Well, I got to admit, Neil is an excellent baller with full of passion. Awesome job, Neil.
I'm waiting for Arwen to help me here.
Why would Arwen do that? You're
Because he pointed that out too. That maybe gas behaves differently
No
when,
offense.
when it's so far high up.
no. What Arwen does is far more nuanced. Sorry, Neil.
Well, if you want to get through the
Said it
housekeeping
the other
questions-
day.
if you want to get through the housekeeping questions, you better move on.
We were going through this list that One Deck had presented. I'd much rather be reactive to that. And in reverse order, we've covered photos, the only self-explanatory thing in the list. That there's a photo of Earth as a sphere. Therefore, you don't have to worry about it. Here you go. You want to know Bigfoot's real? Here's a picture of Bigfoot. There you go. That would do it for me, right? Would it not do it for you? Here's footage of Bigfoot doing Bigfoot things.
You're not listening. You're not listening.
Well,
to me.
the thing is, though, as well, Nathan, that's what most people do believe. They look at these pictures and they take it as read that is true. They don't question anything. You do look at the ISS pictures and the NASA photographs, which we can all see are false. But people actually do. Grown-ass men are looking at these pictures and thinking it's actual reality. So people do
Yeah, but
actually
One
fall
Deck-
for that.
Yeah, but One Deck, that's because they have trust already in those agencies. Once that trust is violated, then they won't. So this is why we have to tear down the lies of NASA. And once you do that, then their eyes can be open and they can realize these are just like Nathan is saying. Just someone gets in a costume, goes through the forest and say, here's a spotting Bigfoot. Everyone starts believing it. Well, NASA's done the same thing. But if you show they're going against natural law and they're violating, then you know people's cognitive, if they want, will start working in the proper manner and say, wait a minute, that can't happen. So they must be lying to me. And then the host of other evidences, like I'm looking at your list of 7 that you found on Google. I mean, these are most of them are perspective issues, and the other ones work on the flat plane as well.
Right.
Let
Well,
me ask a question. On Mount Everest, is the air thinner?
yes. Yes.
I like the way
Okay,
Neil
so
tried
it's
to
got
do
a
a
different
burden of
behavior.
proof reversal on you, Nathan,
Say again.
earlier.
Say again, Brian. We will come back to you, Neil.
Yeah, Neil earlier tried to do a burden of proof reversal on you 2 different times. He said, have you been up there to prove that air behaves different up in the sky? He was begging the question, and it's like, have you gone up there to prove my claim?
So Brian,
Go on, Eli.
is that a concession of our conversation the other day?
We'll get into this
A
later. Let's
concession? Well, I don't know what
let's
you
get
mean.
into this later, Eli. I'm really sorry. But the rest of the list, you've
No.
compiled it into several
Alright.
things. 10th, but I'm hoping One Deck, if he's still there, will just take us through them in or reverse order, and we'll bundle them together, and then maybe move on with housekeeping. You there, One Deck?
Yeah. Yeah. The point. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're coming in loud and clear.
The point 6 is to measure shadows across the country.
Okay.
Is point 6.
Does it give more
It
context?
does give you a little bit of a. Yeah, I'll give you a little bit of context. Pick 2 locations that are some distance apart, at least a couple of 100 miles from each other, and on the same meridian. Grab 2 sticks or dowels or other objects of equal length, 2 tape measures, and a friend. Each of you will take 1 stick, dowel, or object, and 1 tape measure to your location. Stick the object into the ground and measure the shadow. For accuracy, you should both take your measurements at the same time of day. Now, it goes on to say...
Hold on. You need a flat Earth for this. Hold on. This requires a flat plane. This needs a flat
Well,
Earth.
it does go on to say, Nathan. Well, it does go on to say, on a flat Earth, the shadow that is cast by each would be of the same length. However, if you and your friend compare notes, you'll find that one shadow was longer than the other. That's because due to the curvature of Earth, the sun will hit one part of Earth at one angle, and the other part of Earth at a different angle. Same time of day.
You need a flat Earth for those angles. This doesn't
No, yeah,
work on a
something
sphere
flat.
Earth as a claim because you can't measure the angles on a sphere Earth. You haven't got two straight lines meeting at a vertex. You've got one curved line. So this doesn't work as a globe Earth claim. In fact, the very basis of the measurement proves we're on a flat plane. You can only get the angle measurements from a flat plane. Next.
Sorry, can I just add something to that?
You can.
You don't
Go
mind?
ahead.
Yeah, the shadows you see over a horizontal plane or over a globe Earth are exactly the same. The reason they're exactly the same is these measurements of the shadows, as Nathan just pointed out, as Eratosthenes proved, have to happen over a flat horizontal plane if the sun is small or close and local. Let's say, right? We don't know what the sun is, but if it's not a huge ball of plasma 93 million miles away, right? So to make the shadows work, the shadows we see in reality, for them to actually work on a spherical sphere Earth with a radius of 3,959 miles, then they had to claim that the sun wasn't close and local, but instead was huge and far away. So that would make the light from the sun to come in parallel as opposed to divergent. So it all has to start with a flat plane and then make the claim that the sun is huge and far away. The far away part is only to match the angular size, what they claim is an angular size of the sun. So all this all starts on a flat plane. They have to then make the claim that the sun is really, really big and at a certain distance away for the light to come in parallel. But we all know that it is impossible to photograph or video parallel sun rays because the sun's light is always divergent.
Right, well, they'll
So
need
it's
after
total
the
and utter
claim.
nonsense.
The claim, as you pointed out already, utilizes a globe Earth in an orthographic view with the sun and the Earth in the same shot and you looking at it side on, and then a depiction of the light coming in parallel, all of which requires R. Next.
Yeah, they had to beg the question that the Earth was a globe of a particular size, and then make the sun a certain size and place it a certain distance away for the shadows to work. Because otherwise, that would mean, because if they didn't do that, then the shadows prove that it's definitely not a globe and it's definitely a horizontal plane.
The same applies to all claim measurements of a sphere when you're talking about celestial objects. So, for instance, if they say they've got a radar bounce, and they say, oh, well, we got the distance to whatever celestial object, let's say it's the sun, and the reason is because we've got a return signal. Okay, what are their return signals and the timings based on? Well, they're based on their assumption of the distance to that celestial body based on their assumption of R and that Venus has the same R value as Earth, giving them the scaling values with Kepler's third law. Based on all of that information, they can say, given my assumptions of the distance, we should see a return signal at X time. It's like before you've even done anything, you've made multiple assumptions about what the distance is and therefore how long the return signal will be. So when you get whatever the guy's name was, Bob, looking at the return signals with the NASA folk and going, yeah, there it is, right on time, in amongst all this fuzz and noise that doesn't make any sense. That's the return signal. Oh, I've definitely identified it in the exact time frame that the heliocentric model would demand.
They also had to use a fraudulent two-way speed of light calculation as the one-way or two-way, obviously, because you can't get was a speed of light was never ever measured. Never. I'd say it never will be. So they also had to use a calculation that's based on a pre-assumption, a calculation that is officially termed as Einstein's not concept, Einstein's it won't come to me because Einstein used it within his general relativity, special general relativity.
I forgot to mention that. Yeah, Lite. Sorry, that was the next point. My bad. I'm glad you're here. Go ahead.
Yeah, Einstein used it within his general relativity model, and he also used it within his equation E equals mc squared. The c
Are you
is the speed of light squared.
Are you looking
Two-way speed of light
for?
squared.
Hold on, don't run us the
Are you
point.
look-
This is important. The
No, I
timings in
think the
terms of
word
the
he's
light
looking for
and the
is
time it takes to
equivalent.
travel is also very much an assumption that they've made within their timings. So Brian's just going over that. I just don't want it to get lost. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, the two-way speed of light claim that they have is actually based on 4 pre-assumptions. It's based on the Earth being a globe that and of a particular radius. It's based on the sun being also a sphere, and the Kepler's analemma is correct, and it's an average. It's an average distance between a globe Earth and its heliocentric sun over a 12-month period. So it's all comes back to Kepler's analemma and a load of pre-assumptions. There's no measurement. The only person that they claimed measured that was a guy called Fizeau. He measured a tiny amount, right, of a second. This is what he claimed. There's 1 million microseconds in 1 second. I said 1,000 before because I'd forgotten. It was actually 1 million microseconds in a second. He claimed to have measured like a stupid small amount of that with a spinning wheel. It's complete and utter nonsense. He just referred to the original two-way speed of light claim and just tried to calculate what he was doing to match it. It's a load of rubbish. There is no speed of light measurement. That has never happened. Probably never will. So anything you hear about it is all based on a calculation and nothing more.
Right, that was more than enough for sticks and shadows. What's the next one, Deck?
Next one, Nathan, is to watch a sunset. And basically what it's saying is to pick a nice spot from which you can watch a sunset at one point. And as the sun appears to set and go below the horizon, you'll also have a higher level place behind you, which you can run up very quickly and the sun will reappear. This proves that the Earth is a sphere.
Gotcha. So if the Earth was a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, then you'll be able to raise your elevation and see the sun reappear as it comes back from the physical geometric obstruction at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, as per the globe Earth claim of a physical geometric spheroid formerly known as Earth curve at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. On screen now depicted as Al-Biruni claimed, with a straight line to C, the geometric physical limitation formerly known as Earth curve. We debunked it 1st Jan 2020, Black Swan. If the Earth was a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, then every distance to horizon marked as C in this diagram could be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, as asserted in this claim for the sun setting behind an Earth curve edge physical obstruction. However, we have demonstrable evidence that the horizon is not physically obscuring anything. It's beyond the oil rigs in the Black Swan image. It's a hill that's moved behind the things it's supposed to block. The horizon's not Earth curve. Seeing the sun for a second time doesn't prove that we've got a geometric physical limitation at the horizon called Earth curve. The horizon is not Earth curve. Next.
Can I just add something to that?
Yeah, go on.
You do like Neil deGrasse. For a start, the sun, you're not seeing the sunset. The horizon is not a physical location, it's an optical location that changes. Will change with optics, elevation, and weather. You can constantly see it changing with weather. You can stand in one place, looking straight out at the horizon, and within an hour, it can change its location. I've seen it happen time after time. Right? So it's not a physical location. Secondly, the sun that you're seeing in the evening time, that you think is a physical thing setting, that is not the sun. What you're seeing there on the horizon is what's known as the sun mirage. This is an official thing. You don't ever see a physical sun going down behind a physical obstruction. That doesn't happen. Third, if you go and do what Neil deGrasse Tyson did, which is watch a sunset across the desert in Dubai, right, and then go up to the top of the Burj Khalifa, and then see the sun is still above the horizon, then the angle to the base of that, to the bottom, the lower limb of the sun, should be way, way lower if it's gone down behind the curve. It can't be higher than your angle to the ground underneath it.
Okay, let's
Because
pretend
the
for a
ground,
second.
like,
Oh, go on. Sorry.
I'm just saying, if your angle from the top of the Burj Khalifa to the ground down below is just a depression angle between two parallels, your eye line and the ground below, the sun's bottom limb cannot be a more shallow angle than that. It has to be a greater angle if it went down behind something. But it's not. It's a more shallow angle. Well, I'm finished.
Well, this image on screen is the black swan I described a second ago. So, by the claim that's made in this top 7, you've got a physical obstruction to the sun. In the same picture, this would have a physical obstruction to the oil rigs. Well, if the sun was being blocked at the same exact time, you just have to wait. And what is claimed to be a physical obstruction to these oil rigs, as you can see in this image, moves behind them. Well, physical blockages called earth curve, if they were real, wouldn't do that. They couldn't do that. Physical hills don't move. Now, yeah, they claim it would change because it's over a spherical surface as you raise in height. But it doesn't. It changes with the weather. And hills don't do that. We've debunked earth curve. The horizon isn't earth curve. So having earth curve cause sunsets is absurd when we can prove it's not a physical obstruction to the sun. It isn't. 1st Jan 2020, Black Swan. The horizon's not earth curve. Next.
Point 4 to prove the Earth is curved and a sphere. Travel through or even within different time zones. I'll just read you a little bit of what it tells you. According to a 2008 paper in Applied Optics by David K. Lynch, the curvature of Earth becomes somewhat visible at an elevation of 35,000 feet. Easily visible at an elevation of 50,000 feet. So if you're on the right commercial flight, you might be able to see the curvature of Earth with your own eyes. Just a little bit more. In the event that you're not high enough, though, you can still experience curvature of the Earth another way. For example, if you were to fly all the way around the world, you'd find that it would be nighttime in part of the world and daytime in another part. In that way, the existence of time zones itself is proof that the Earth is round.
Okay, so they're utilising the same exact claim, which is that we've got a physical geometric sphere edge for a horizon. However, they're going against the standard globe Earth rhetoric in terms of how it's claimed to be demonstrably so. That would be Earth curve at the horizon by its physical blockage and obstruction of things behind it. Further to that, the actual rhetoric is that slap, 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 says Neil deGrasse Tyson, you're not going to see the left to right curvature of the Earth from 2 millimeters above this beach ball, which is the height of the ISS by comparison. So while we as flat earthers would, and as you correctly assert would be the case, if we were on a ball, we would see curvature from 35,000 feet and it would be pronounced at 50. We don't, and it's not how the globe Earth claims to clarify how it has Earth curve at the horizon, because that's with obstruction, not left to right curvature. That's a misapprehension of the actual globe Earth claim in the first instance. Would be true, and you say it is. But it's not how globe Earth is qualified as having curvature. So how are you going to mathematically prove that? How are you going to measure this left to right optical curvature in the periphery of your vision when that's how Earth curve isn't mathematically qualified? So it's a complete red herring, nondescript claim that he's not going to back with anything other than saying you can see Earth curving with your own eyes? Why does Neil deGrasse Tyson say you can't? I'll tell you why Neil deGrasse Tyson says you can't, because you can't. Earth's flat. You'll never see any curvature at any altitude. But what you will see is a horizon at all altitudes, if visible. And if visible, it is an Earth curve. Because if it was, it would physically obstruct things exactly as claimed in the Earth curve maths, which is qualifiable. Not some wishy-washy you can see it out of a plane window, if you're high enough. Because no, that is definitely not the claim of a globe Earth. On the contrary, that is incorrect and not in line with globe Earth claims. More in line with our claim that you should see Earth curving at 35,000 feet, and you don't. Next.
Hang on. What has that got to do with time zones?
Nothing.
Because
Nothing. It's a complete red herring.
they got the international dateline out there in the Pacific Ocean. The sunrise to sunset, right? And then, so in England today, the sun rose before it's going to rise here in Idaho. Well, where's the marker that sets the beginning? It's the international date line over there somewhere in the Pacific. So the sun going over a flat plane works just as fine with that as well.
We
It's
observe and
nonsense.
we see that. We watch the sun come up and go down and pass over our heads as it does so. That's the sun apparently moving from your position, lightening you as it does so, and then darkening as it leaves. That can be described without any inference whatsoever about a spherical Earth. And the two that have preceded it required a flat Earth to assert your sticks and shadows. So this doesn't affirm a globe Earth in any way, shape or form. To link time zones and the moving of the sun, after claiming that the sun's being blocked by a physical geometric sphere edge horizon formerly known as Earth curve, is just a next step into an affirmation ladder that they're building, because they're selling you something. They're getting you to nod along. Now, if you assume that the horizons block the sun, you can assume that as it went round the curve of the Earth to block by the horizon, it was proving it in different time zones. No, it proves the sun comes over my head and lights me and then gets dark as it passes. It doesn't prove that it's moving over a curved surface, unless I've already assumed, by way of your inference, that it was blocked by a physical Earth curve edge hill in the way when it went over to my right. It wasn't. We debunked the notion of it being blocked by a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve. So this doesn't logically follow in any way, shape or form. It's a complete red herring, as it stands alone, unless you've bought into their assumptions to date, to this point, which we haven't. We've debunked them all. Next.
Point 3, climb a tree. Imagine a vast plain with but one tree smack in the middle. If the Earth were flat, your vision would extend exactly as far while standing at the base of the tree as it would when at the top of the tree. However, the farther you climb, the farther your line of sight will extend to the horizon. That's because parts of Earth that were concealed from view by its curvature are now revealed because your position has changed back to the vast plain. The naked eye can see objects that are millions of miles away in space. Theoretically, with a clear line of sight on a clear night, one would also be able to see bright lights from faraway cities. That this is not possible is further evidence of a round, not flat Earth.
So this demonstrates a complete lack of understanding when it comes to perspective. If you raise an altitude, you can open up the angle and therefore resolve more in your field of view. Has absolutely nothing to do with the assumption we debunked in the first 3 points that the horizon is obscuring your view, and upon raising in elevation, you will reveal things from behind that obstruction. The horizon isn't an obstruction. On screen now, it would be blocking your view to these oil rigs. Ergo, as you raised up, you'd see them from behind the obstruction, the hill that blocked your view. That's what his claim's making out. Ergo, this wouldn't be possible because it would have a hill in the way. You'd have to get higher to see this. We don't. It moved with the weather. The hill that they're claiming blocked the view. Now, further to that, saying that you climb a tree and that you can see forever is absurd. It's akin to an understanding level of Father Ted. This cow is close. Holds up toy cow. That cow is far away. Now put the cow 16 million miles away. Can you see it, clown show that wrote this claim? Oh, you can't? Oh, so things just get too small to see then? It's not that if Earth curve isn't getting in the way you'd see forever, because that implies you don't understand perspective, like Dougal. Next.
Well, I just want to say, Nathan, I find that very rich from that person writing that, because the very thing they had to hijack was perspective, the Rayleigh criterion, the diffraction limit, all these things, and they also had to hijack refraction and other things. But the very thing they had to hijack to create, which was flat Earth elevation angles to Polaris, which are measurements of perspective, right, via Polaris, right, via angles. They had to hijack that to create their globe. So it's very rich that they're talking about they're not being talking about how on a flat plane you can see forever. If you put on a globe, if you go up a tree, you'll be able to see over the curve. You know what I mean? It's like that's the very thing you had to hijack to create your globe, and now you don't even know what it is. That shows how much how little this person actually knows about the model
and perspective. It's as dumb as Dougal.
Yeah.
Next.
Point 2. Watch a lunar eclipse. Solar eclipses get all the attention, but if you are able to catch a glimpse of a lunar eclipse, you can see evidence that the Earth is indeed round. Here's how it works. Earth passes between the moon and the sun. Sun projects Earth's shadow onto the moon in the night sky.
As demonstrated by... Oh, it's just that we see the effect of a shadow making a light in the sky turn red. I've seen it with my own eyes. And that shadow coming from the opposite direction as Earth would be if I assume it's a sphere with the sun behind me, behind the sphere. It did the opposite of that. It didn't move in the direction that a shadow would move, and it made the whole thing turn red. That's not what shadows are. Shadows don't make things red. So no, that's definitely not a claim. It also relies on an assumption that we are on a sphere, that we are assumed to be orbiting on a sphere, and that those orbiting spheres sit in a way where they occult one another. That's 3 very large assumptions to explain something that doesn't even tally with the explanation, because it's not a shadow, it went red, and it didn't move in the direction of a shadow based on a heliocentric orbital motion. So no, in every respect, no. Further to that, there's also something within the heliocentric paradigm that doesn't stack up very well with their model, which would be the Seleninian, which is where you have both sun and moon above the horizon. Not Earth curve, I might add. That's why this happens. It's got sod all to do with orbital motion and spheres getting in the way of one another, occulting to cause shadows. When you've got both of them above the horizon. What do they call that again? Oh, the impossible eclipse. You see, you wouldn't have impossibilities if it was real. It just wouldn't happen. It just isn't in a heliocentric orbital mechanic that they claim causes shadows when things turn red. It's nonsense. Anyone want to add anything to that?
I will add 2 things to it. Number 1, there is no such thing as a lunar eclipse. Nothing is getting occulted. There is nothing going in front of the moon. The moon has a coloration happening, maybe a darkening sometimes, or a coloration, and that coloration doesn't always go in the direction that they need it to go for heliocentrism, as Nathan just pointed out. So nothing gets occulted. You can see the moon through the whole of what they're calling a lunar eclipse. It's not being eclipsed. Nothing is being occulted. You're still seeing the whole of the moon, right? That's number 1, right? That doesn't happen. So technically, lunar eclipses don't exist. Something does exist, something does happen, but you can't call it an eclipse because nothing is being occulted. A solar eclipse, something is blocking the sun. Nothing is blocking the moon during what they're calling a lunar eclipse. That's number 1. Number 2, the pathetic heliocentric claim for how a Selenian eclipse happens, which is the one Nathan just detailed, where you have the sun and the moon above the horizon, and yet the moon is being eclipsed, right? Their pathetic explanation for that is that the sun is being refracted up. So that means that this eclipse, that is a very rare occurrence, but does happen every whatever amount of years, that somebody is able to, right? Think about this. Somebody is able to predict the refractive effects of that particular day based on the movement of the heavenly bodies.
Yeah, but they won't be, will they? Because they'll be changing the overall circumference of the ground they assume to be spherical when they have an impossible moon eclipse, because we've increased the size of the ground with an R value and a derivation thereof. They won't be doing anything with refraction. They'll say refraction and claim that they. Just let me end. So they'll say, oh, yeah, of course we've managed to figure out the exact refractive effects, and look, they work perfectly within our maths. It's like, yeah, but your refraction maths that you're going to be claiming for a sphere is based on a derivation of the R value we also debunked. I want to get the rest of these questions in.
In any of the predictions, one second,
I beg
sorry,
you,
well, quite
time
quickly,
sensitive.
where in-
Time sensitive for me, please.
Where in any of the predictions for a solar eclipse, right, or a lunar eclipse, any of these things, is refraction part of it? Where?
Yeah, Brian, I got 2
centuries.
seconds. I got 2 seconds before things get loud. I just wanted to add something.
Go on.
First of all, there's a selenilian eclipse or selenahelian eclipse happening in a few days. So I would encourage everyone to watch this phenomena. Also, it's my speculation. I haven't paid. I mean, you could just look on YouTube. It appears like whatever is happening to the moon isn't even happening in one direction.
Right. Having seen it with my own eyes, I know exactly what you're talking about, but let's move on. Go on, Deck, you still there?
Okay. Yeah. Straight in at number one. Number one proof Earth is a sphere. Watch a ship sail off to sea. If you were able to watch a ship sail off to sea, watch its mast and flag as it fades off into the distance. You will notice that, in fact, it does not fade out of the distance at all. Instead, you will see its mast and flag appear to slowly sink. The ship sailed beyond the point at which you would see it. Just to be sure, bring a pair of binoculars with you so that you can see even farther off into the distance.
Perfect. Say it with me. Say it with me. Black Swan. On screen still for the audience. If the Earth was a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles and every distance to the horizon, as asserted in this claim with boats, could be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, where they assert the boat will be obscured by the physical geometric limitation called Earth curve. On screen now, a demonstration that the horizon, formerly known as Earth curve, is beyond its geometric limitations, therefore not a hill getting in the way. We can debunk the notion that these boats, they're not their oil rigs, have gone behind something physically obscuring them. They're not being physically obscured by anything. The horizon's behind them. Not at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. Massively in excess of said measurement claimed to be a physical claim of Earth curve getting in the way of boats in this instance. It isn't. We've debunked it. We only need to debunk it once to prove beyond all certitude that there is no physical geometric limitation called Earth curve. We just have a horizon. There's only one, and the horizon in your, if you're a globe believer, begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator, is a physical geometric limitation to your view blocking boats. Until we debunked it. Excellent work. Any last comments on this?
Below surface level. Below
surface level in their maths. Right.
I have. If you're watching a car drive over a hill, does the bonnet of the car go first and the boot of the car go last? Yeah. But what they're trying to hijack is the diffraction limit, right, from a horizontal, where the bottom of the boat gradually, from the bottom, right, recedes upward, and then you can't see the boat anymore, but you can see the sail. And then eventually you can't see any of the sail. That is the fraction limit. That has nothing to do. It's purely optical. It has nothing to do with a curve. If that boat was going over a hill, a curve of Earth, then the bow, which is the front of the boat, would have to go down, and the hull, which is the back, would be up. So the last thing you'd see would be the hull of the boat and the tip of a sail, if there's a sail, that you might be able to see sticking up above the hull. But you won't see the hull disappear before the sail. That won't happen. Like it's supposed to be going over a curve. That won't happen.
Right, who wants to play along with a perspective example? Any volunteers? Adam, you there? Arwin? Only because 10th and Brian have had a few words.
I'll deal with you if you want.
Right, only because you've chatted a lot already. Maybe Neil, can you play along? Anybody except for the people who've spoken the most? Perfect.
I'll play.
Perfect, Neil. So what we're going to do, Neil, is he's just left. Oh, it's refracted. we're going to put a brick about a mile away, Neil. And you've got pretty good eyes, right? Would you say a reasonable man standing, looking into the distance at a brick will see it at a mile away?
Yeah, if you got a good eyesight, you should be able to see a brick at a mile away.
Perfect. Right, we're going to take the exact same brick and we're going to move it 3 miles away. Would you say that a reasonable man would appreciate that that brick is now too small to see?
Yes.
Right.
Kind of an impossibility.
Right, we're going to leave the brick on the ground, but we're going to add a couple of 100,000 other bricks on top of it to make a skyscraper. Something with a much wider angle. Bigger. Would you say it's reasonable to assume that you'll see the skyscraper?
Absolutely.
What about the brick at the bottom that disappeared at 3 miles? Will you see that, given that it's the same distance and size? When it was too small to see, will it suddenly become apparent because the rest of the building's apparent?
That's a negative. You still can't see the bottom brick.
So therefore, the bottom brick has disappeared simply because it's too small to see, but you can see the bricks above it. Nothing to do with an obstruction caused by Earth curve and everything to do with the bottom brick having a limited angle to it, i.e. it's too small. But they say that's because Earth curve got in the way of that bottom brick, don't they? Yeah, we've debunked that.
Then it would have been Earth curve at the beginning, but it wasn't.
It never was. The horizon's not Earth curve. We've only got one horizon, and their horizon was Earth curve until we debunked it with the black swan on screen now. What they do is put you in Muppet Vision side on, show you the side of your own head, and tell you how light's going to bend at a rate that basically leaves them in a paradox, not able to derive the R, to give them the bent rate of the R, to make the Earth bigger, and then draw it out like it's a curved line that's called light in terms of refraction. It's all a massive con. That was good. We didn't get through more than one housekeeping question, but we certainly covered the 7... What was the name of the actual article? Just 7 proofs of a sphere?
Yeah, if you just do a search for proof of Earth curve, that'll be in one of the top 5 choices.
Yeah, that's not what I asked. What's the title of it, though?
Sorry, Nathan, I'm just driving at the moment. I can't get it.
10th, you looked it up as well. Do you know what the title is? Just so I can make sure I reference it in the video title for this video.
I've seen it before. I've just been taking notes. Let me go find it. I'll post it.
We've got 2 minutes.
It's Cell Mentor.
One more time.
Cell Mentor. CELL Mentor. 7 ways to prove the Earth is round.
7 ways to prove the Earth is round. That's the bit I needed. That's perfect. Excellent. So I'll change the title to 7 ways to prove the Earth is round debunked. And with that, I'll say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a member, and all that good stuff. And another massive thank you to today's Discord and G Plus panels. No, Gilded and G Plus panels for making today's live show possible. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either after show. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!